turning now to Johan. Can you tell us a bit more about the work of the Exponential Roadmap Initiative, your involvement with the Race to Zero, as Kate mentioned, your business playbook, if you have a copy, I don't know, or explain the 4 pillars I think are fantastic, and generally how you've developed your incredible corporate ecosystem and how we can grow this, how you're thinking of bringing in more companies, business, how to really mainstream, these leaders that you're now working with in the business community.
Thank you, Pankaj, Maya as well for this incredible event and everyone who has joined us here. And really excited about 2 more exponential strategies, because we are the Exponential Roadmap Initiative. That's basically where we come from. And both Google and yourself is basically implementing such strategies. And what is exponentials basically? Well, one thing which you probably haven't heard before, if we would take 30 linear steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., that will take us about the end of the pool. If we take 30 exponential steps, meaning 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, etc., that will take us to the moon. And in our thinking, we are stuck in linear thinking. And if we should be able to succeed with the enormous climate challenge, we need to have exponential strategies in place. We actually started our initiative a little bit about our journey 2017, I think, in the discussion with Johan Rockström, Owen Gaffney, my co-chairs as well. We came up with this first idea of the carbon law, which is basically a simplification of what is required from a scientific perspective, that we need to halve emissions every decade while protecting nature and building up the carbon sinks. And further on, it was also stated that provides us an opportunity to keep close to 1.5 degrees. And then we worked intensively for 5-6 years to drive that narrative everywhere. And I think we together have made a difference to influence both European requirements, the US requirements, the EU Race to Zero. So it's all embedded there. So it's also show that it's possible to drive a global narrative. And a key point is, of course, that the first halving is the most important by 2030. So we need to have a laser focus, not on 2050, but on 2030. And that took us to the next step in the journey. That was basically to figure out, do we have the solutions to take us to the first halving? And that was a background for the first Exponential Roadmap, 2018 Global Climate Action Summit with Christiana and Johan, which basically show that, yes, we have the solutions, but we need to scale them exponentially in all sectors in parallel. Energy industry, buildings, transport, food and land, it has to happen in parallel, and they need to be accelerated, of course, by policy, finance, climate leadership, and technology, as Google talked about. We need to all use all these tools. So it won't happen automatically, right? And then we decided we should particularly focus in on the business sector, because it's basically the business sector who provides the solutions. So without any solutions, we can't shift out the fossil fuel economy. And together with Ericsson, we came up with this idea that we really need to simplify, make it simpler for companies to really understand what is required, and developed something called the business playbook. And that was sort of a framework, what we sort of demand from companies to be aligned with 1.5. And it's basically 4 pillars. The first is, cut your own emissions, which is made of quite straightforward. But it's also cutting your value chain emissions, your supply emissions and usage of your products. But it's also to scale up the climate solutions as well, not just focus on the down curve. And the 4th pillar is, how do you contribute to climate action in society? Because no one can achieve net zero on their own, not even in their value chain. We either win or fail together. And then we built the initiative, we built the ecosystem now with companies representing a bit more than $1 trillion in revenues. Some of the leading companies in the world. And it's both transformative companies like Ørsted, for example, is one example, or IKEA, but it's also more disruptive companies like H2 Green Steel. It's an interesting example, who provides steel with 90% less carbon footprint from day one. And we really moved from pledges to action. So we are a true action initiative. So we're building up key projects to make a huge difference, like the supply chain leaders. And we kicked off something called the SME Climate Hub together with We Business, accelerating small businesses' capabilities to take climate action. And most recently, we're also working really closely with both the UN Race to Zero and the high-level expert group with the Secretary General's staff in order to influence the requirements set on companies, but also implementing them in our framework, which is incredibly important. And I would say the recent steps, some things we are doing right here is, for example, supporting companies to develop so-called transition plans, and also the shift to how we can identify climate solutions, the third pillar, how we can actually get companies not only to focus on the down curves, but actually how to shift up climate solutions which require really firm and strong principles. And that's something we're doing together with Oxford Net Zero.
Excellent. Yeah. Fantastic work. Thank you so much for sharing a bit more. And I know the companies in your ecosystem were really featured at the UN Secretary General's Climate Summit in September. And also you managed to mobilize, I think you said 20%, companies representing 20% of Swedish GDP before the last election to try to push for really sound climate policy, which is quite fascinating. Also, the international level, how can we build this company voice, as Kate was also saying, for very sound, effective governance and policies. And the policy interface is very fascinating.
Yeah, we created, because the fourth pillar is really becoming extremely important. And we need to have climate strategies which are resilient for any type of government moving forward. It's incredibly important. And the most important voice will, in most cases, be from businesses. So we really need to mobilize the leading businesses to put positive pressure on governments to get the policies in place which makes it possible to actually scale up the solutions, because it's going far too slow. We know that we need to shift the curves to the left, and we're talking about 5x for many of these solutions, and in particularly in the early phases, something we did in Sweden together with our partners. We don't have time, but we also have many fantastic guests here. It's create a campaign called We Can Do It, because the name is so important, because we can only achieve this if we are believers that we can do it. So it's called We Can Do It, and please sign on that campaign. We have thousands of signatures, and we managed to mobilize a lot of the Swedish companies to put this positive pressure on the government, actually, for example, lately to protect the 2030 goals. And we think that is a way forward to organize the most progressive companies and to actually bring the message to the governments, and do that in the bold way, because we as businesses and organizations really need to step up and becoming much, much more bold and sharp and clear.
Thank you.